Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we are inside of Affinity Publisher V2, and in today's tutorial I want to show you how you can put together a professional looking invoice such as the one that we have on the screen right here. So if this is something that you would like to learn, then let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that you want to do when you open up Affinity Publisher is set up the correct canvas size for your invoice, and the way that we're going to do that is by going up to our file menu and selecting new. Then inside of here, we can select the right canvas size for our project. So in most cases, when you create yourself an invoice, if you are in the UK, that is going to be the A4 size right there. Whereas if any of you guys are in the US, then you may use that letter size right there, the 8.5 by 11 inch. So this right here is going to be personal preference. I am in the UK, so I'm going to go ahead and use the A4. So at the moment, I'm in this print section right here, and you can see just underneath this print section, we have the press ready. And essentially, these are both exactly the same thing. The only difference between these two right here are going to be the color profile, which we can see down here on the right-hand side. At the moment, I have the RGB when I'm in the print section with my A4. However, if I choose the A4 in this press ready just down there, that is going to change the color profile to CMYK. And without getting too technical about all of this, all you really need to know is that if you guys plan on printing your invoice, then you want to use the press ready and have the CMYK color profile. However, if you just plan on maybe emailing your invoice to your client, then go ahead and just choose a print A4, which is going to be the RGB. For this tutorial, I'll stick with RGB, as most of the time in today's world, we will actually email an invoice rather than print it. So with my A4 selected, what I want to do next is I'm going to come over to this Pages tab just right there. And inside of here, I want to turn off that Facing Pages. And then my number of pages, I'm going to keep that as 1, as we only need 1 page for now. And because I want this design to go from edge to edge, I'm not going to worry too much about setting up any margins or the bleed. The bleed itself is more essential if you're going to go ahead and print this. However, I don't really plan on printing this, so I'm not going to worry about the bleed. So with all of that set up, all we've got to do now is go ahead and hit the create button. So here we are inside of the Affinity Publisher V2 interface, and it really doesn't matter if any of you guys are still using Affinity Publisher V1, as everything that we do inside of today's tutorial you can do in both versions of Affinity Publisher. So what I normally like to do first of all when I start my design is just start bringing in some background elements just to put my design together, and the way that I would normally do that is just by using some of the shapes that we have inside of Affinity Publisher. So if I make my way over to the left hand side toolbar menu, and I'll go down to where we have our shape tool, and I'll change from a rectangle to maybe using one of these cloud shapes just down here towards the bottom. Then what I'm going to do from here is just start to drag that out a little bit just to get the rough size that I would like. So I'm going to put that somewhere around that size. And this has got far too many bubbles for me on this cloud, so I want to go ahead and get rid of a few of them. And the way that we would do that is on the top menu bar over here on the left hand side to where we have this bubbles menu. Inside of here, we can go ahead and change this number, and that will start removing or adding some more bubbles, whichever way you would like to go. For me, I only want a few inside of here, so something maybe like 5. And that is exactly what I'm going for. So I'll go ahead and start to move this into place and maybe just rotate that around just a little bit and just put that roughly where I want it to go. And I'll come back and resize this in just a moment. But for now, I want to go ahead and give this a color. So going over to the right hand side inside of our color menu, I want to go ahead and turn the stroke off, which is that black one right there. So I'll go ahead and just select that white circle with a red cross. That then will take the stroke off. Then I want to go ahead and change the color of the fill to be something a little bit more eye-pleasing. And for this design, I think I'm going to go with the brown and creams kind of color. So what I want to do first of all is go into my browns and then just find something a little bit lighter that I'm happy with. And I'm happy with this color right here. So what I'm going to do next is make a copy of this shape rather than going back over to my toolbar menu and creating another one. So I'll go ahead and select that. I'm going to hit Command or Control C to copy, then Command or Control V to paste. I'll go ahead and just move this over here to the right hand side. Then with this one, I want to go a little bit darker in the brown. So I'll go back over to my color wheel and I'll just start finding a color that I'm happy with. Then I'll just start to rotate that and position that a little bit better to what I'm going to be more happy with. And just move it up a little bit. And once again, I'll make a copy of this one with Command or Control C the copy and Command and Control V the paste. Bring that over to the other side. With this one, I want that to be sat behind the middle one. And the way we would do that is over in our menus on the right hand side. We're just going to select that layer and we're just going to drag that down to the bottom. And now that will sit behind our middle one. And now with this one, we'll go ahead and just make that a little bit lighter in color and find some that I'm happy with here. And that will do for now. I may go ahead and change these colors later, but for now, I'm just going to leave it while I continue with the tutorial. So what I want to do next is maybe just drag that out a little bit, make it a little bit bigger and move this into place to where I want that to go. So I did briefly pause the video while I just quickly moved these around and repositioned them and resized them to how I would like them to be, just so you guys didn't have to sit there and watch me go back and forth with this. So once you found something you are happy with, we are now ready to continue with the tutorial. Okay, so what we're going to do now is start bringing in some content on our header, such as our logo over here on the left hand side and some invoice information over on the right. So I assume that you guys may already have your own logos. So just for demonstration purposes, I'll go ahead and use my logo just to be a little bit quicker. So if I head over to the left hand side inside of my assets folder, I have one of my logos inside of here, which I'll go ahead and just drag and drop. And this logo right here says MJW Media Designs, and this logo is used for my Etsy store rather than my YouTube channel. So I actually want to go ahead and just double tap on this and change that text. Then I'll just write in Studios, and now I can move this around and position it where I want it to go and just make that a little bit bigger. If any of you guys want to check out my Etsy store and some of the products I've created inside of Affinity Publisher, then I will leave a link in the description. So that isn't looking too bad in terms of where I want this to go. Maybe just move that over just a little bit. I may come back and resize this later on to get a little bit more precise, but for now that will do perfectly. So what we want to do now is head over to the right hand side and we'll create our invoice information. So if we make our way over to the left hand side toolbar menu, we'll grab our artistic text tool and then we'll just drag this out to any size that you would like for now. And inside of here is where you are going to write your website. So just to be quick, I will just write in your website. But of course, this text right here is going to be your personal website. So underneath that, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter so I can write some more text. Inside of here, I'm now going to write invoice. Then with the invoice text, I want to go ahead and make this bigger and change the font. So I'm going to select the invoice text, head up to the top left hand side toolbar menu to my fonts menu. Inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and choose this impact just to make that a little bit bolder. And of course, I want that to be a bigger font. So I'll go ahead and change the size of that to maybe that's 64. And then with our website text at the top, that's far too big. So we want to go ahead and change the size of that to be something a little bit smaller. Maybe around that size 12 will be perfectly fine. And you may want to go and change the font to that as well. So I'll go ahead with Helvetica. And what I want to do now is just bring this website and the invoice closer together. And the way that we would do that is by selecting all of the text inside of here. Then we'll make our way up to the top menu bar to where we have this option that says paragraph leading. Then inside of here, we can go ahead and change these numbers just to make that get a little bit closer. And we're going to have to do this manually as that 48 and 64 is either too far or too close. So we'll go in here and we'll type in maybe 50 and we'll see what we've got. That's still a little bit too close. So I'll go ahead and put 55. And that is looking a lot better. There's going to be a lot of trial and error there just to get that however you like. But this will do for now. So I'll go ahead and just drag this up into position. And looking at this, it's a little bit too big. But what I can do now is just drag this from the corner just to resize that. Then I'll go ahead and just put this roughly where I want it to go. And what I want to do next is just change the color of this to be white rather than black. So I'll go ahead and just select all of this text. And I'll go and change the color of the font from black to white. Okay, so what we need to do after this is start adding some additional information underneath our invoice, such as the invoice number, the date the invoice was issued, and the due date. And the way that we're going to do that is by using our table tool. So if we make our way over to the left-hand side toolbar menu, and we're going to select this orange one right here, which is our table tool. So once we go ahead and select that, the way that this works is once we start to drag this out, you can see as I start to pull this over to the right right hand side, it will start adding additional columns. Or if I pull it back over to the left, it will remove them. And that's going to be the same if I go up or down. It's going to start adding columns, or going back up, it's going to remove them. So as a starting point, I only want the 2 columns, just like I've got here. So I'll just let go of that and leave that the way it is for the moment. Then we have column A and column B. So inside of column A, we're going to write in our invoice number. Just like that. Then over in column B, we'll actually put in the number of the invoice. And we'll just say this is your very first invoice. So we'll just put in 001. However, if you sent plenty of invoices, you're always going to keep changing this number to match your invoice that you are sending out. But for now, we'll leave that the way it is. So what we want to do next is add a couple more columns in here. And when I first created this table, I could have made all 3 columns at once, but I've done it this way just to show you that you can add additional columns as well once you've already created the first ones. And the way that you would do that is with these drop down menus right here, either on the left hand side or over here on the right. And if we just start to pull that down, that will add another column. Pull it down again, that will add another one. Once again, bring it back up if you want to remove them, but we do need 3 columns for this, so I'll go ahead and select both of those. Then inside of this second column, I will write in date. Then underneath that one, in the next column, we'll write in due date. Then over in column B, we can write in today's date, for instance, which is going to be the 20th of February, so 20th of the 2nd, 2023. Then our due date will be any date that you guys want your payment to be due by. So I'll just put in maybe the 20th of the 3rd instead, so it gives them a month. So with this information now complete, what I want to do next is select all of this text inside of our columns. And the way that we would do that is by selecting any column and just dragging across with your mouse and highlighting the entire thing in blue. Then I'm going to go up to my text menu on the top toolbar menu and just change the size to be maybe a size 11 to be a little bit smaller. And then what we want to do next is start using some formatting options with our table. And the way that we would do that is over here on the left hand side inside of this table menu. If you guys don't see this table menu right here, then just simply go up to your window. Then just make your way down towards the bottom to where it says table. Inside of here, just make sure that you do have your table checked. Then you'll have access to all of these parameters as well inside of the table menu. So inside of our table menu, the first thing that I would like to do, I think I want to center the text right here in the alignment. So I'll go ahead and just center that. So now that sits in the middle of our columns. What I also like to do is just add a little bit of spacing over here on the left hand side, just so it's not right next to the edge of the column. And the way that we would do that is just by using the inset option right here. What you want to do first of all is make sure that you have all of these unlinked. Then we'll go ahead and just reset all these to be 0. Apart from the left, you want that to be maybe 1. Or you may want to go a little bit bigger than that. You may want to go to 2. And you can see when we adjust it, it slightly starts to move away from the left-hand side. For me, I'm going to keep that at 1. Then what we're going to do next is just make these columns a little bit smaller as we don't need them that big. So the way that we would do that is with this width and the height right here. So the height, I'm going to go ahead and just change that to around 7. And with the width, I'm going to make that a little bit smaller so it starts to drag that in just a little bit, just to get a little bit closer to the information in cell A. So somewhere maybe around there is going to be perfectly fine. And that's entirely up to you how much space you would like there. I think I'll leave that at 25mm. So I'm just going to deselect this just for a moment so we can have a look at our table. And you can see that we still have our border around our table and all of these lines in the middle. I don't necessarily want these here on this design. So the way we'll go ahead and remove those is by once again just highlighting our table, just by selecting one column and highlighting all of those together. Then back over to the left hand side, inside of our stroke and our fill options, you can see that we have this border option here, and all of these different buttons are going to affect different parts of the border. And just by looking at the image, you can generally see what part of the border it is going to affect. So I'm going to select this one right here, which looks like a window, and that is going to select the entire border around the outside as well as the middle. So I'll go ahead with that selected, and just down here where it's in black, I'm going to change the color of this to be transparent using that round circle with a red line. So once I go ahead and come off this and deselect it once again, you can now see this is what we are left with, which looks a lot better in my opinion. So what we can do now is just select this and move this up into position. And then just put this anywhere you would like it to go. It's a little bit too big, I think. So once again, I'll come back into this and I'm going to make these tables or cells a little bit smaller. Just bring them closer together. So back over on the left-hand side with our cell height, I'll go ahead and just make that a little bit smaller just so I can try and fit this in to the design itself. And then what I want to do as well is change the color of the text to be white. So I'll make my way up to the top menu bar and inside of here, I'll go ahead and just change that to be white and that should do perfectly fine. And of course, if you still find that to be too big, then go ahead and just select all of that and change the size of your font. We'll maybe go for a 10 instead of an 11 and then go ahead and just move that into place wherever you like it to go. I always like to use my arrow keys just to get a little bit more precise. So that will do just for now. So that's our header section finished. What we're going to do next is add our company name and information, as well as the client's name and information. So we'll go back over to the left-hand side. We're going to grab a shape, and I think I'll go for a rectangle with this one. And it's just a case of drawing this out to be any size that you would like. So I'm going to have this roughly around 31, I think. And what I need to do is make sure it snaps in the middle. So I'll go and grab my move tool. And just using your guides, letting that snap, just like that. We've got that middle center guide right there. And I'm just going to drag that over now and take that off the page. Then what I'm going to do is make a copy of this rectangle with Command or Control C to copy and Command or Control V to paste. Go ahead and just drag that over to be on the other side, letting that snap into place. And now I just want to change the colors of these just to make it blend in a little bit more with our header. And with this one here on the right hand side, I'm going to match this color right here with this centerpiece. So I'm going to make my way over to the right hand side. I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool so I can come over and just sample that color. And now you can see that we have that color available right here. So if I go ahead and select that, that will now change the color of this rectangle over here. And with the one over here on the left hand side, I think I'll leave that the same color for now. But what I want to do next is just add a little bit of a border around this, I think. So I'm going to go and grab myself another rectangle over on the left hand side. And I'm going to draw that out just to be a little bit bigger, somewhere around that size. Then with this, what I want to do is turn off the color of the fill. So coming over on the right hand side to our color palette, we'll go ahead and just make that transparent. And with the border, we'll go ahead and make that a darker color, maybe this brown right here. So we'll just go ahead and sample that one right there and just give that the same color. Then I'll go over and grab my move tool. I'm probably going to have to make this stroke a little bit bigger in a moment. I just want to make sure I center it first. So I'm just going to drag that down to make sure it snaps into place. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller just so it's closer to our boxes in the middle. Somewhere around there is perfectly fine. And if we just come off that a moment, the stroke isn't very big at all. So we'll go ahead and just select that once again. We'll come up to our stroke menu up here on the top and we'll just make that a little bit bolder, maybe 1 point or 2 points, whatever you guys are happy with. And what I want to do next is just make sure that I have this come off the page over on the left and the right hand side, just so we don't have any of the border right there down the edge of this. So if we just go ahead and select that once again, just drag that out to any size you like, just making sure that comes off the page, and we'll go ahead and leave that the way it is. And at the moment, this content right here is definitely too far down the page. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of that and start dragging this up to roughly where I want it to go. So maybe somewhere around there. And with this section right here, we can cheat a little bit just by copying our information up here inside of our table. So if we go ahead and select this invoice information, we go ahead and make a copy with Command or Control C the copy, then Command or Control V the paste. We'll go ahead and just drag this down. And at the moment, we can't see any of this text because it's actually behind the box that we created. So if we go over to our layers, and what we want to do is just drag that to the very top. And now that will sit on top of it and we can read that perfectly fine. And now all we're going to do inside of here is we'll go ahead and just double tap. And I'm going to delete all the content inside of the B because we don't really need cell B. So with all that selected, I'll go ahead and just hit delete. And then we'll grab this little handle right here and we'll just remove that column as we don't need it anymore. And we'll just grab one of these nodes here on the right hand side just to make our column A little bit bigger to fit all of our content that we need inside of there. So I'll go ahead and make that around 57. And at the moment, we've got 3 columns in here. We're going to need around 4 or 5. So I'll go ahead and add a couple of more inside of here. Then all we need to do is just change all of the text in here. So in this one, we'll write in your company name. Then underneath that one, we'll write in your address, followed by your town, as well as your county or state and your postcode. So there is all the required information. However, you would just change that to your company name, as well as your address and town, etc. And just as a quick note, if you guys are inside of here and you want to get to the next column, just go ahead and hit the tab button. Then that will take you down to the next column rather than doing that manually. So moving on, what we want to do is go ahead and select all of our text, and we'll go and make that black. So go up to the top menu bar, we'll change that to be black. Then with your company name at the top, it'll probably look a little bit better if I go ahead and make that bold. And we'll go ahead and select all of these once again and maybe just change that font to look a little bit better. So we'll go with Helvetica, just like we did up here, just to keep that consistent. Then we'll go ahead and deselect that by grabbing the move tool, and we can just go and move this into place using those snap lines to make sure it's in the center. And of course, you can go in here and just make your font bigger if you want it a little bit bigger than that. So maybe go to 11 or 12 for this information. And then once again, every time you resize it, you may just have to go ahead and snap that back into place. So that is the information for our company and our address. And over here on the right hand side, you're going to want your client's information. And all we've got to do here is just make a copy of this one with Command or Control C the copy, Command or Control V the paste. Drag that over, let that snap into place. Then inside of here, all we've got to do is edit this to be all the information for your client. So instead of writing your on this one, I'll go ahead and just write in there. So that is now complete. I'll go ahead and deselect that. So that is looking pretty good so far. And of course, you can go in here and you can go and grab your frame text tool, and you can just draw that out and you can write in any information you would like, just like that, in terms of maybe having the same information that you have there, and just do it that way rather than using tables. But I just personally love using tables. It's one of my favorite features to use inside of Affinity Publisher. And that is because really you can just get so precise with all your spacing in between your columns and making sure everything lines up perfectly. Whereas it comes a little bit more complicated when doing it this way. So I always tend to use columns every time I'm using text in this kind of context, especially when you are using multiple columns, just like this one up here. So you know it always lines up absolutely perfect and you can get that perfect spacing in the middle that you want. So I definitely urge you to start using columns a lot more often if you guys don't use it too much at the moment. Okay, so moving on, what we need to do next is add the content for the service that we provided. And once again, we're going to go ahead and use a table for that one. So if we go back over to the left-hand side, once again, we'll grab our table tool. Then we'll just go and drag from one side to the other. I only need about 3 cells for this. So I'll go ahead and just make it that size for the moment. And I'll just drag this down over to the left-hand side to start removing some of these cells. And then we can just grab one of these nodes right here and just pull that out to be the rough size that we want and just put that into position. So that will do perfectly fine. Then I'll go and grab my move tool just so I can snap this into the center and move this into the rough place where I want it to go. And now we'll just double tap back in here so we can add some additional columns. And the amount of columns that you're going to need for this is very much going to be dependent on the services that you provided and how many different jobs that you did. So just for demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and maybe just add about 6 of these. And I want to go and make these a lot bigger than what they are. So I'll go ahead and select all of those once again, head back over to the left-hand side, and we're going to change the height of these columns just to make something a little bit bigger, maybe around 13. And just like before, you just want to go ahead and type in all of the services that you provided inside of here. So you'll have your item as well as your description and the cost of the job. So just to be a bit quicker, I'll pause the video and just pre-fill all of this for you. Okay, so here is my table pre-filled just to make the video a little bit quicker for you guys and not having to watch me do all this manually in real time. So what I've got here is 7 different columns. The top one just being the item, description and the cost. All I did differently on the top was made that bold. And then you can see just in this middle section right here, if we pay attention over to the left hand side, you can see that I have the inset on the left, as well as a 2mm on the right. That just keeps it away from the edges over here just to make it look a little bit more cleaner and more readable. And you may have also noticed that some of these cells are bigger than others, and the way that you can adjust the size of your individual columns are just by simply either tapping between the A and the B or the B and the C, just with your arrow right there when that appears, and you just drag that to the left or the right just to make that a little bit bigger or smaller. I'll go ahead and hit Command or Control Z just to undo that. And it really is as simple as that in terms of making those bigger or smaller. Okay, so what I want to do next is format this a little bit better with maybe adding some background colors in here. So first of all, I'm going to select this first column right there. I'm just going to drag this outside so it starts selecting 2. Then I'm going to drag this back up again just so it goes into 1. Then we'll just have that one column selected. Then I'm going to hold down Command or Control while I select myself another column. That then is going to give me the option to start selecting all of these individually, just like that. So holding down Command or Control, I'm going to make my way through this just to create a little bit of a pattern, just while I select all of the pieces that I want. So that there will be perfectly fine. And this is another reason why I love using tables, as you can get really creative with this. So what we want to do now, we selected all of these individual pieces, is come back over to the left hand side. Inside of the stroke and fill, we want to change our fill color. And we'll go ahead and grab our eyedropper tool. And I think I'll just sample this color right there and go ahead and just select that one. And now we can just deselect that and see what we've got. So that is looking pretty good. I just want to make sure I have this centered just like that. And what I want to do next is just start removing some of the borders on this, maybe the outer border. I don't really want that. So I do want it on the top, but I don't really want it on the sides and the bottom of these other ones. So I'm going to go ahead and double tap inside of here again. I'm going to select all of these columns apart from the top one. Then I'm going to turn off my outside border just here. So with the black, I'm going to go ahead and just turn that one off and then see what I've got. So that is looking better. I definitely want to turn off the left and the right in this column. So I'll go ahead and select that one. And once again, I'll just make sure that I select the right piece, which is that one there, or the left piece, sorry. And then I'll go ahead and I'll choose the right piece as well and turn that one off. And then we have both of those off as well. And I also need to turn this top one back on here. So this is going to be a lot of trial and error as well. You may find that sometimes you do turn these off by accident. So I'll go ahead and just find my upper piece, which is that one right there, just for that top piece. And I'll go ahead and I can just turn that back to being black for the moment. And that will just turn that back on for us. So what I want to do at this point is make these lines a little bit bolder and maybe change the colors of them. So we'll go ahead and we'll just select all of this once again. And I'll grab this one right here, which is going to be the inside borders. We'll go ahead and make this a little bit bolder. So maybe just put that to either 0.5 or maybe 1, depending on what you like. I'll stick with 1. And for the fill color of this, I'm going to go ahead and sample a darker brown, maybe that one there. So we'll go ahead and we'll give it that color and we'll see what we've got at the moment. So that is looking pretty good. We haven't changed the color of this top one up here, so we'll go ahead and quickly do that. We'll select this row right there. We'll make sure that we select the top piece. We'll go ahead and change that to be the same size. So that is going to be the 1 point. And we'll go ahead and just sample that same color. And now that should be matching the same as everyone else. And that is our table complete. All you got to do is come in here and start changing all of your content to anything you like. You can always add more rows or remove them, and you find that when you do add them, it'll start copying the same kind of style that we had here on this one. However, you just want to come back in here and just start selecting these once again and then just recoloring them the same that we've done up here. So for now, I'm going to get rid of those because we don't need them ones, and we can continue with the rest of this. So at this point, I do want to apologize for the length of this video, as it's gone on a lot longer than I intended, but I'm trying to cover as much as I can just to give you guys a really good understanding how some of these tools work, especially the table tool. So moving on, what we're going to do next is just create a section right here, which is going to have our subtitle, our tax, and our grand total price in there. So we can do that just by making another rectangle and dragging that out to the rough size that you would like to use. I'll just use roughly that size that I've created right there. So what I'm going to do first of all is just drag that slightly off the page so we don't get any border around that right hand side. Move this up into position to where I want it to go. Go ahead and change that fill to be the color. We'll go ahead and cheat once again with this just by copying this one right up here. So Command or Control C the copy, Command or Control V the paste. We'll bring that down to where we need it. Once again, make sure that is at the top of our layers so it's not sat behind our box. Then we'll go ahead and just select all of this and select the font color to be black. So just up there so we can see it. And then all we got to do is make this a little bit bigger in terms of the size of the font. To any size that you would like. I'm going to go for roughly a 14, I think. Then we're going to go ahead and just open this back up so we can make it a little bit bigger, just so we can fit the information that we need. So somewhere around that size will be perfectly fine. And I'll go ahead and make these just a little bit bigger in terms of the height. So I'll just go ahead and make that as big as you like. So maybe 8mm on the height. Then all we've got to do in here is change this to be subtotal, then tax, then grand total with your prices. Okay, so that's now complete, and I'll go ahead and just move that into position to where I would like it to go. If anything, I might make that font just a little bit bigger. So I'll go ahead and just make that maybe around 15 or 16. In terms of the size of the font, if anything, the box needs to be a little bit smaller. So I'll go ahead and just resize that. And then I'll grab all of that together and just start moving that up a little bit to roughly around there. Then all we really need to do now is just add a few different shapes in here just to finish off the design. So we could go ahead and grab ourselves a rectangle just for our footer at the bottom. Go ahead and just drag that out to any size that you would like. What I want to do with this is I want to go up here and convert this to curves. So if I select that and I'll go ahead and grab my node tool, I can create a center point here. Just like that, and I'm going to start dragging this up just to give me a little bit of a curve. But in order for this to curve, I need to go ahead and change this right here, just on the top menu bar, to being a smooth curve, just like that. Then what I'm going to do is just hold down shift while I tap this one over here on the left hand side, as well as the one over on the right, and I can drag both of these down at the same time. And then I'll get that one in the middle just again and start pulling it up a little bit. And then that is roughly what I am going for. Then what I want to do with this is just change the color to maybe be that brown that we've got right there. So I'll go ahead and sample that and give that a color. I'm going to turn off the stroke as I don't really want it on this piece. In fact, looking at this, I think I prefer that brown. So I'll go ahead and just quickly change that color to be that one instead, just so it makes it a little bit different from the rest of this in the middle. Then I just want a bit of a pattern here over on the right hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab maybe a triangle and I'll just start dragging that out. And I'm just going to rotate this around just so I can get it in the rough angle that I want it to go. So somewhere maybe like that. I'll grab my move tool and I'm just going to put this over here. And I just need to drag it all the way across. And then just start rotating it a little bit, as I know the angle I want to go down is roughly around that angle there. Maybe just turn that around a little bit more. So something like that is going to be fine. So I'll go ahead and sample that same color that we had from our triangle. And with the triangle, I want it to be behind this piece right here. So in my layers, I'm going to drag and just drop that beneath it. And then we are left with that right there. Then all I want to do inside of here is have a signature section. So I'll go ahead and grab myself a rounded rectangle and I'll just go and drag that out to any rough size that I like. I want to make these edges a lot more rounded than what we got. So I'll come up here where it says corner on the top menu bar. I'm going to round them as much as possible. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to turn off the fill over on my color palette and I'll give it a stroke of that same brown that we've already got there. Then I'll go ahead and move this into place. But thinking about this, I'll have to turn my fill back on so I can see white in the background. So I'll go ahead and select that fill once again, turn that white. Then what I want to do is roughly just match this same kind of slope that I've got here. So somewhere around there should be fine. I'm just going to drag that off the page and maybe make that just a little bit bigger. And then inside of there is where you're just going to simply write in your name. So I'll grab my artistic text tool and I'll just type in name. And that is where you will sign your signature just down here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this that we just created. So I'll go ahead and hit Command or Control C the copy and Command or Control V the paste. And then we've got that same piece here. I'm going to rotate that back round while holding down shift so that automatically locks into that perfect degree for me. Then I'm going to bring this off the page a bit. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. And what we're going to have here is our payment information. And just to be quick, we'll go ahead and just copy this one right here with our company name, etc. So Command or Control C to copy and Command or Control V to paste. We'll go ahead and just drag that down, bringing that to the top of our layer so we can see it. Then inside of here, we just got to double tap and just start changing all of this information to be your payment information. So once again, I'll just pause the video while I fill this out to be a bit quicker. Okay, so I've now completed all of the information for the payment method. I also just changed this over here where I wrote name just to make that look a little bit better. And you can see right here where I wrote thank you for your business and the sort code. There's a little bit more spacing in there. And the way that I did that is just by adjusting the size of this one column right there, making that bigger than the rest of them, just to give me a little bit more space in between the sort code and the thank you for your business. And then that is what I ended up with. And just like before with the cells, all I did was make this top one here bold and the rest of it is still the same. So we'll just finish off this design now with adding our footer at the bottom. So if we go over to the left hand side toolbar menu, we will grab our frame text tool for this and we'll just drag from one side over to the other. And then we'll just make sure that what we write in here, we're going to center that. So I'll go ahead and select all the text. At the top menu bar here, we're going to use that center alignment. And now you can write all the information in here that you want to use. So once again, I'll quickly just pause the video. So you can see I've now filled this out. All I wrote was questions or concerns. Please call a random number I just typed up or email your email address. And that really was a finishing touch to our invoice design. So as you can see, this is what we got come the end of this project. And I think it looks really good. Of course, you can go ahead and use different shapes on this if you like and different colors to make it more unique to you. I think if anything, the only thing I would change here is going to be this item description and cost. I'll probably just make that cell a little bit smaller. So by selecting that, I'll come back to my height and I'll just make that a little bit smaller just to make that look better. Just like that in my opinion. And then we'll go ahead and just move that down a little bit. And don't forget, you can always come in here at any point and you can double tap and just add additional cells or start removing them. And all you've got to really do here is just start selecting all these individual cells like we did before. We're holding down Command or Control and just selecting that same pattern and then just start coloring them in just like you did before. However, I'll go ahead and hit Command or Control Z just to undo that as I don't want any of that to be changed right now. So there is our final product. I think this looks really good. Of course, definitely go in there and change your shapes and colors to be a bit more unique to what you're going for. Put your own logo in there, change some of these fonts and maybe their sizes just to look a little bit better. And of course, don't forget to go ahead and save your project file by going up to File, down to Save As and giving that a name. So you can always come back to this at any point and edit any of this information for your next client. So that is it for today's video. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something new and I will see you in the next one.